Wait, put your number in mine.
I don't know how to use a phone. I'm sorry.
Wait, so I'm gonna keep following her.
Some of y'all may not like what I'm about to say, y'all. Some of y'all may agree. Some of y'all may vehemently disagree. You know, let me be first to tell you, though, that I do not care. I do not care. So I'm just coming straight out the gate and just letting y'all know this. Like, I do not care. But just understand that there's not a single bone of hate in my body when I talk about this stuff. So do understand that. First and foremost, I, however, have zero issue with telling it to you straight how it is. Just being honest, y'all. With that being said, y'all mother effers need help, bro. Y'all mother effers need help. So for those who haven't seen the video, pretty much long story short, this guy, you know, the stream sniper appears while they're over at the pier. You know, if they go there, he appears. So they first see him when they're walking to the pier, and he asks for a photo or something like that. And so this is kind of a weird interaction, but nothing harmful there. He's in a hoodie at the time. They take a photo, and then, you know, they go on their way. Later on, he comes back. He has apparently changed, so probably just took the hoodie off, quite frankly. People are saying he changed, but he probably just took the hoodie off. And so he comes back later on, and he asks for Imaru's number. And Imaru, you know, kind of, you know, denies him. Well, obviously, not kind of. Imaru obviously denies him. You know, so I don't have a phone or whatever. He's trying to be nice about it. Need to be assertive about this, by the way. But pretty much denies him. And he pretty much does not like that. He does not like that. He just got denied on live stream, asking for a streamer's number that he just met in real life for the first time. So he goes a little crazy. He says, I'm going to, you know, remove you, you know, and
Kill you right now.
things get weird. So that's the TLDR on this, in case you were wondering. And let's dive in. So as you can see, this guy here kind of popped up out of nowhere. They're just out kind of doing their thing. This is, you know, Valkyrie and Imaru and Senna. Now, I don't really care for these streamers, to be quite frank. I don't really care for these streamers at all. But that's neither here nor there. It's the point and the principle that's here that we're trying to address here. Now, if I had to align with one of them, it would probably be Imaru, because they're currently in the great state of Texas. So, you know, so I gotta say what I am saying. The thing about this is that this whole situation is absolutely wild. And I'm gonna tell you why it's so problematic. I'm gonna tell you why this is even allowed to fester on and why stuff like this even happens in the first place. Now, I'm not going to sit here and bash this guy or whatever, as some of y'all may want to be just straight off the jump. Some of y'all are probably like, oh, this freaking weirdo, which I mean, he is. But, you know, some of y'all are just going to spend all your energy just bashing this guy, constantly dragging his name, constantly dragging his face under the mud or whatever. The fact of the matter, y'all, is that this dude needs help, bro. The fact of the matter is that this dude needs help. First, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out tremendously. Thank you very much. Doing all that stuff gets us absolutely nowhere, because this guy needs help. This guy needs help mentally, bruv. This guy needs help mentally, on a mental level, on every single scale. And by no means, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to show like empathy towards him or be like, oh, well, you know, what he did wasn't that bad. No, what he did was freaking terrible. It was completely out of line, completely out of pocket, and it's not acceptable, plain and simple. All I'm simply saying that doing all this, you know, just dragging them and stuff like that, ultimately does not do any good, because the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of people who are like this on the internet. That's the bad part. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, had he gotten like knocked out or something like that, you know, had this happen and then, you know, he got knocked out because of it, that would have been well deserved. That would have met the situation appropriately. You know, just being flat out, that would have met the situation appropriately. That is not what happened. But I'm saying, you know, I'm a firm believer of do dumb stuff, expect dumb reactions. And that this justifies for that. You know, you do dumb stuff, there's a possibility that dumb reactions can happen. Plain and simple. That type of behavior is out of line, and you all need to understand that first and foremost.
Oh, he's so sweet.
Russell's a nice guy.
The issue is, however, I feel that that type of behavior is so common on the internet, y'all. It's so common nowadays on the internet, and it's because internet culture and society has enabled it. You enable people to constantly overstep boundaries. You allow people to say things without consequences. Like, that's like the norm now. That is literally the norm. You see it all the time on the internet, everywhere on the internet. You have people who are kind of, you know, running around saying this, doing that, and they don't get stopped. People enable them. People around them enable them to keep these freaking activities and mentalities up. You don't check this stuff at the door. That's an issue. That's why you have people like this individual here. And there, like I said, there are a lot of people who are like this. And let's face it, streamers have been key at enabling this behavior. Let's be completely honest, you may not want to hear this, but that's just fact of the matter. Streamers have been key at enabling this behavior. Let's face it, a lot of streamers are not good people. And a lot of streamers have grown into fame off of bringing, off the backs of chaos. That's how they have grown into fame, is off of the backs of bringing chaos into the world. Pretty much. I mean, you think if you know your streamer history, your streamer lore, you look at some of the early roots of streaming, especially like IRL streaming, and you know that there are a lot of kind of very disruptive names that can go on that list that contributed greatly to streaming, such as people like Poseidon, people such as him, and everything of the likes that kind of continue after that. Now, of course, there are big streamers who obviously worked with that individual as well, and they kind of got big off of that. But like I said, I'm not going to single all these people out. The fact of the matter is that is just engraven, and interwoven into the very fabric of, the streamer stuff. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of streamers have enabled these types of behaviors to even fester to be there. I mean, we have people like Johnny Somali. We have people who literally go out and do these things because they know that people will watch it, people will react to it, people will click it, people promote it, people enable it. They know this because of this whole mentality of not having consequences for actions, and this whole mentality of enabling has just gotten just straight up out of freaking whack and out of line. It's crazy at this point. Everyone's just running around mimicking everyone, trying to do this, and it's just all just toxic stuff. And it's all this chase for likes. Everyone's just like, oh, I get them likes. I'll do anything for them likes. There's no dignity anymore. There's no nothing. It's just, gotta get them likes. I'm gonna do anything for them likes. I'll sell my soul for them likes. Gotta get them likes. Gotta get them likes. You know what I'm saying? Like, pretty much that's the situation. And so the race for likes and the drama with the toxicity that has kind of centered around so many of these successful streamers for so long, and it's in different forms. Sometimes it's not just like straight up. Sometimes it's just a streamer who may be way too vocal about things that they do not understand, and as a result they create division. They create they create a whole group of people, especially for the big streamers. And so there's a lot of streamers who are like this, actually, where they might speak on things, or they might discuss things that they don't fully understand, and they, as a result of how they word it or how they approach it, they essentially create a whole audience that just these people who watch them, they just pretty much believe whatever they say, right? It's kind of like, they kind of almost like worship them, right? And then they believe everything that they say. So you pretty much create like this whole freaking new group of people who just pretty much mimic this stuff. And so for a lot of reasonings, streamers are at the focal point of allowing this type of behavior to even exist in the first place. But the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of bad streamers. Now, look, I've been streaming for like 4 years or something like that. Let's face it, dude, I pretty much suck at streaming. But it's not because of the lack of resources or not knowing the right people. And so, of course, that plays a heavy role into it. But a lot of it plays into the fact that I have a moral compass. One of the things about streaming is that you have to have there's a lot of streamers who just are not good people. Like, at the core of who they are, there's a lot of streamers who just are not good people. There's an art to streaming. There's an art to fishing money and, out of your audience, right? And you have to understand that there's an art to it. Not to knock the art or whatever, but there's art to it. There's a lot of streamers who really are not necessarily good people. Now, there's a lot of streamers who are good people, don't get me wrong. Plenty of them. But I'm saying that there's a lot of very big streamers who, like I said, kind of built off the backs of creating chaos, creating toxicity. And this kind of goes in line with that. And, just being, very good at kind of manipulating people or taking your last dollar. That they don't really have that moral compass. And when you don't have that moral compass, it allows you to do pretty much whatever. And that also allows you to pretty much say and do whatever without not really caring about the consequences. So kind of goes back to what I was just talking about before about, sometimes when people might speak on something that they don't fully understand or something like that, it allows you to do that. And so that's an art that a lot of times it gets people in trouble. But once again, however, there's a lot of great, good-hearted streamers. There's a lot of plethora of them. And I would say that, the majority of streamers are good, or I would say are fairly good-hearted people. Now it's hard to, if I could say that about the majority of big streamers, because you have to realize that there's a lot of streamers, but you know, like the 1% is the people that you actually, you know their names, right? That's like the 1%, you know their names. The rest of the 99%, just random people. You know, there's a lot of probably really good people, but you don't really see those people. So that's what I'm getting at here. I'm also talking about like that big group of notable names. But the whole reason why I'm kind of discussing on this whole art about, you know, pulling money in and being able to kind of, you know, manipulate and kind of garner this immoralistic kind of value when it comes to streaming, and this whole art of kind of just like pulling these people in and creating these connections. This art is powerful because it forms bonds. And some viewers may have issues with discerning in between these bonds being just like, you know, I'm a fan bond, or like, you know, we're best friends even though we've never met bond, and you owe all your time to me bond. You know, some fans have an issue discerning between these things, and that's what you see here. And no, this isn't fully on the streamer, of course. This is obviously, it plays on them too, because most of the people in the stream are not like this. So obviously this is not, you know, this is not something that's just specifically on the streamer. This is on the individual as well for not being able to discern that. But it goes into a bigger cultural issue as to why this is even prevalent as it is, and why you do see it a lot nowadays, and much more than you would have ever imagined to see it, you know, 10, 20 years ago, whatnot. But too often, one of the biggest things now is that too often you see a lot of people who, you know, they might subscribe to the creator, or they might donate to the creator, and this gives them this reasoning, this line of thought that's like, well, you know, I subscribe to them, I donate to them, so I have complete control over them. You know, they're supposed to be doing what I do. I'm the person who made them. You see this so much nowadays in streaming, and in some way, shape, or form, some like celebrities too, like maybe musical artists. Like some people will be like, oh, well, we're the people who buy the CDs or who stream the music. Most of these people who say that probably got on bootleg anyway. You don't actually pay any money. Let's be honest. But, you know, people say that, and then that's their justification for acting like a complete, you know what I'm saying, complete idiot. That's their justification. It's like, well, I donated. I subscribe to them, so I can say and do whatever I want because I'm the one who made them rich. I think that this is absolutely absurd. And I think it's, you know, I think people they've heard the consumer is always right line of thinking, you know, whether that be in, you know, in a restaurant, or whether that be in gaming, which of course you hear a lot in gaming nowadays. I think some people can take that context and take it completely out of line, completely out of whack, because, you know, of course, when you look at games, you know, some people will be like, you know, the consumer is always right, or pretty much saying like, you know, the players create, you know, the game, right? Which is a large part and true, because, you know, the consumer is the person with the money. If we don't buy it, the game does not succeed. So. But I think that a lot of people maybe take this like out of context and think that this applies to people. This applies to streamers. This applies to like actually having access to individuals' everyday life, or you know, or whatnot, or being able to have these privileges with this individual, this human being. You know, I think that people take this out of context, don't understand and be able to differentiate that these are two entirely different things that work in different ways, do not apply to each other. And this has to flat out stop. Let's be completely clear. This has to flat out stop. Like, y'all have to understand that there are boundaries, bro. Like, there's boundaries and limits that are there, and they have to be set. Y'all need help with that, and that's okay to admit it. Just straight up, dude. If y'all are getting confused with that, that's an issue. Plain and simple. That is an issue.
Russell's a nice guy.
Now, most RL streamers are perfectly okay with stream snipers, and let's be honest, most stream snipers are usually pretty fun and pretty enjoyable from what I've seen. You know, I've been watching Twitch and streams for 6 years or 7 years or 8 years. I don't know, something like that. We'll just say close to a decade or something. So, I mean, I've been watching plenty of streamers, you know, interact with stream snipers, and you know, from what I've seen, these streamers are always pretty enjoyable, and glad to have stream snipers come, as long as they're pretty cool. And most of the time, these stream snipers are pretty cool. Like, you know, like for example, there's streamers like Jenny TTY, right, who recently won the IRL Streamer of the Year award, I think like a year ago, something like that, right? Not the most recent, but the past one. By the way, I don't actually care about that whole award ceremony because I think it's a complete joke. The Streamer Awards. I'm just being honest. Nothing against Cutie and whatnot who runs that stuff, but I think that there's a lot of bias. I think that there's a lot of this year there was a lot of unnecessary political stuff that was kind of thrown in there. That was completely unnecessary. Yeah, I'm just saying, but that's beyond the point. Don't really care about the Streamer Awards. But nonetheless, you know, like Jenny T2I is someone who literally could travel a whole country, and she's done this, you know, like on a bike trip. And she has hundreds upon thousands of stream snipers that come and, you know, support and say hello and want pictures, maybe bring her like snacks or stuff like that. Like real cool stream snipers who just understand, hey, let's go there. You know, let's take a picture. Like, you understand she's doing her thing. You know, she's creating content. Let's do the thing. Let's take a picture or whatever. Or if she can, you know, maybe she's too busy so she can't. So she explains that to you. You know what I'm saying? But they're always really cool about it. Like, I'm not sure if I've ever seen a crazy stream sniper on her stream. But there probably has been one, but I probably just can't think of it off the top of my head. But most of them, these are pretty cool. Now, it also depends on the country and it depends on the streamer as well. Because while, you know, these are the type of stream snipers that people want and people enjoy, fact of the matter is that, you know, depending on the country, you might have some crazy people. I think that the USA definitely has more crazier people than some other countries. There are some countries in Europe who definitely have some very, 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 very wild and crazy individuals who definitely probably list at the top of this scoreboard here. But nonetheless, you know, like other countries may not necessarily have that many people who are necessarily like this, right? And then also it depends on the streamer because some, you know, they always say how like chat reflects the streamer, right? So this is one of those instances where it's like if the streamer is constantly letting the chat kind of get away with these types of behaviors, you know, constantly just walking the borderline with like weird stuff going on with their chat, which I mean, a lot of streamers do, and you know, it's I guess, you know, some people want to go to these streams because they're able to essentially say and do whatever. They don't want accountability. So if you start putting accountability on people, then maybe you don't have as many views. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you look like me, not having any views, right? So that's always a possibility there. But you know, it's when you create this environment where people think that they're forming these like super close bonds with you, you're not clear about where everything is at, where everything stands. Some people can take this out of line and out of context and go into this complete fairy tale world that no one checks them because we're in a society where there's just so much enabling. There's so much enabling with everything. You know, I mean, you can be whatever you want. No one questions whatever you are. You know, you can do whatever you want. You know, it's like, it's crazy. But let me do note that, of course, reemphasize that most stream snipers are not like this guy. Let's be completely honest, they're not. Most of them are not. This guy is a rare case for these type of streamers. Now, if you're like someone who's always hyper aggressive, someone who's crazy, someone like a Johnny Somali, maybe some of those phase people, you know what I'm saying? Like those people are going to be more prone to get, you know, out of line, aggressive, out of pocket stream snipers. Like plain and simple because that's the energy that you feed off. You're asking for that energy. You pretty much survive off of that energy. Your whole concept of your whole fame and your whole, you know, success is pretty much on toxicity. So toxicity only breeds more toxicity, right? So that's what you're going to get for stream snipers, pretty much in that situation. That's how that one's going to work, regardless of how you look at it. So in those situations, yes, you're going to get crazy people like this. But for these types of streamers that you see this happen with, this is just like, this is not your normal stream sniper. Most stream snipers are not going to be like this. And, you know, it takes a lot of courage for this guy to come out there and be a complete weirdo on stream and say and do these things. You know, that's... I guess we got to applaud him for that, right? Whatever. But nonetheless, though, just want to reemphasize that most stream snipers are not going to be like this in general unless you have bred this type of behavior in full in your community. For example, you know, if the streamer is like some streamer who literally sits and pets dogs for 12 hours a day, You know, that's what the stream is. They just sit in as pet dogs all day. Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to have some crazy stream sniper like this. It's also probably very unlikely that you have over like 100 viewers. But but look, that's beyond the point. I'm just saying what I'm saying. Like, you know, you breathe these types of communities, these types of environments that result in these types of individuals who want to meet you or want to, you know, stream snipe you or think that they're entitled to do this or that. And then there's like the lonely epidemic that plays into this. It's like a whole nother thing that plays into this whole scenario. Whereas I believe that men, you know, men who do this a lot of times have been negatively affected by media constantly telling them, you know, not to be a man or that being a man is bad, essentially emasculated, right? And they're confused on who and how to be and how to act towards the opposite sex. You know, and we live in this world now that has bashed men and such. Create an environment where some men have no idea how to even approach a woman. You know, and vice versa. A lot of women probably don't have good interactions with men, but it creates scenarios where things like this are now able to happen because everyone's just so divided. You know, everyone's just so we're at like an all-time high on levels of division. You know, instead of everything being about working together, everything's about tugging at this, tugging at that, tugging at this. And it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like instead of striving to work together, it's always like, oh, well, you know, females can do this and males can do this. You know, oh, well, it's got to be because that's a male. It's got to be because that's a female. It's always pointing this and this and this and this. There's never like any accountability that really takes place here. It's always just kind of just pointing at the other. And it's being like, you know, it's like the Spider-Man meme and everyone's just pointing at each other, but it never really gets or goes anywhere. That's pretty much how this thing works. So all of y'all need to chill the F out with that, quite frankly. I think all of y'all are dumb on that. You know, males and females, think all of y'all are dumb on that. Y'all really need to evaluate this whole tug of war thing about, you know, the battle of the, bro, like, wake up. Wake up. The best part of waking up. Sorry, that jingle just popped up in my head. I couldn't help but say it. And I assure you, by the way, even though that this part was brief, like this right here, what I just talked about, this was a very brief part of this whole dialogue. I guarantee you that someone will only hear this part of the dialogue and will probably be in the comments talking about, oh, well, it's because the females, or, well, it's all males suck, or whatever. Somebody like, they'll immediately hear this one part and probably try to make the whole thing about that one part. That's the exact behavior that I'm actually talking about and the exact issue that I'm talking about. So whoever that is that's going to do that, thank you for proving my point. But we live in this society where, you know, people do not experience consequences, y'all. Like, it's like there's no freaking consequences. People think a lack of consequences is perfectly okay. Or, well, it was something small, so no consequences should be given. You know, like, you have to understand when you do this, it will ultimately just backfire on you. Like, ultimately, that's what's going to happen. It's just only going to get worse. You know, that inch eventually becomes a mile. That mile becomes a whole freaking, you know, a whole continent. That whole continent becomes the globe. The globe becomes the freaking universe. Okay, obviously I'm reaching, but like, you know, that inch becomes a mile. That inch fully every time becomes a mile when you do this. There's no consequences. So that inch becomes a freaking mile. You just let it go and go and go and go and go. Keep going and go and go and go. And so hell, in California, the place that this even occurred in, you know, they recently had a law. I don't know if it's still a law, but I know it was a law for a long time, where it was like, you know, you could do theft, right? Like you could go and steal something from the store, and as long as it was under like $1,000, if it was like $999 or something like that, then you wouldn't go to jail for it. Like, you would get a ticket. It was pretty much a slap on the wrist. Like, pretty much like you would have people who would just go and intentionally steal exactly right under like $999, and then they get a slap on the wrist, and then they get out or whatever, they get their little ticket, and then they just go right back at it. They've probably interacted with the cops like 200 times, but they don't get put away because it's not over $1,000. It's $999. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I understand you're like, oh, well, it's not that much. It's, you know, but people are always going to abuse these situations, these scenarios, these laws. People are always going to abuse these things. And you give them an inch and they will take them out. And that has been the situation with our current society and why things like this are even able to happen. You give an inch, they take them out, plain and simple. And I'll just keep it a buck straight up. You know, California has some pretty loose laws that, you know, highly questionable. can be highly questionable at times. That enables this type of behavior that we're seeing here with the whole thing with the girls here and with this guy. You know, that enables these type of scenarios to kind of be more prevalent in areas like those. You know, I don't think that you're going to necessarily see too much of this type of stuff in places like, you know, like Texas or something like that, because bro, let's be honest, you're liable to get, you know, let's just be honest, you know, there's you understand. So I just want to throw that out there, just not too much shade, a little shade that make it fun, but just being real, just being completely honest about that. You have to understand that if you let one thing slide, then you eventually let it all slide. That's how it goes. And that's how we got to the situation that we're at now, you know, where someone feels comfortable enough stalking, stream sniping, and harassing a group of individuals. That's how we got here to begin with. And then there's Reddit, y'all. And then there is Reddit. That's literally all I'm going to say about that. And I'm just going to leave it as it may, because there's nothing more I need to say about that. Reddit could be a whole nother conversation here, and we all know that pretty much 99% of people on Reddit are the exact type of person who appeared on this stream and stalked and stream sniped these people. Let's be honest. That's just Reddit. That's what we're gonna leave it at that. Keep it moving. To conclude, we're in the middle of a freaking health epidemic, y'all. Mental health epidemic. And it's largely because these behaviors are enabled and not checked at the door. Check them. Check them at the door. You know, these types of behaviors are not okay, period. And people need to be made aware of that. So next time you go out to the pier and you see a group of, you know, people who, they're streamers or whatever, you know, next time you go out and you're talking to these people and, you know, and you maybe ask for the number and you get rejected, leave. Plain and simple. As simple as that. Don't be weird about it. Don't be crazy about it. Yeah, I gotta stop that. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. But hopefully this addressed some things. Like I said, you might agree with some of this. You might disagree with some of it. Some of this might make you upset. And like I said, I don't really care. Plain and simple. I don't really care. I said what I said. If you want to go discuss it, then feel free to comment below. Feel free to, you know, we could discuss it below if you're speaking cordially. I'm all open, always open to have cordial discussions, whether I agree or disagree. As long as we're having discussions and we're discussing something, then that's fine. That's perfectly fine. If you come with hostility, I got zero time for it. I'm not going to actually entertain it, you know, but sure, you can comment below. Why not? You know, but I'm not going to entertain it. You know, I'm going to speak to someone who's reasonable, who's logical. Do you feel me? But nonetheless, y'all, like, so it has to stop, bro. Like, this behavior is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. So do understand that. But at any rate, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Much love. Holla.
Spike Su content.